maybe you could keep it a bit down. Do
you want to come in a bit, actually?
So, hello, guys.
Let's see if they can hear us.
I think they can. Can we see the live chat as well? If we go on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the live chat there.
I see.
Right. Yeah.
So, guys, if you're online, just maybe type hello in the live chat so we see who's online. I hope you guys are doing well. I see one is online, two. We are waiting for a couple of people more to come maybe, and then we're gonna start off with the webinar. And this webinar is just to help you kickstart your career in the modern music industry. And 3 people, just type hi. Let us know who's there.
Make sure and let us know that you can hear us.
Oh yeah. Can you hear us? Let's see.
This is the fun
Don't be shy.
This is the most fun bit, isn't it?
We are here to talk to you guys as well. It's not just like a webinar.
Andy says perfect.
Dankeschön.
Perfect is good, isn't it? Yeah. It's the most good. It's totally
perfect.
Good.
On point. Really good. Who else is there? I see Andy's here. I see 4 people are watching right now. So just type hello.
Hiya.
Just so Ben is auch da. Wunderbar.
Of course he is. He's always in. Straight in. Love it. You gotta love that. All right, Ben.
Ben, awesome.
My brother Ben.
Sound is top. Amazing. Yeah, we hand around the microphone anyway, so you can hear Chris later. He's talking most of the time. Probably I'm just gonna ask questions. And yeah, so to let you know, guys, we are here to answer your questions as well. So, and it should be like a discussion, just like a question and answer, or just ask me everything kind of thing. So you're always welcome to just type in a question. I'm gonna, monitor it and forward the question basically. And maybe who else is there? We got 4 people now. We just wait maybe a couple of more minutes, 1-2 minutes. And then we kick off, starting the career in music. Yay, I think it's the right time as well, because gigs are mostly cancelled so far. So this can also help you what you still can do, and definitely why you still should do it now. Make use of the time. The music industry is not over, it just has started. Yay, sounds top. Awesome. Okay, maybe we just kick it off and see who else is joining us from time to time. We are going to record this anyway, and it's live then on YouTube, so you can always just watch it all the time and get the information out whenever you need it. All right, then hello again.
Hi.
Welcome to Zero to Music Heroes webinar live here on YouTube. And we're super excited to have you here. This is especially for artists or music creators, as well as all the people behind scenes, or anybody who's interested in like how artists are going to kick off their career these days. My first question was actually, this time especially, artists mostly struggle because live gigs are cancelled, and they think, oh my god, this is it, this is over. And I guess you're the best person to kind of tell the people that there's another audience still out there. The audience is still there, although the live gigs has been cancelled and it's online. But you know, like all the struggles that artists have with streaming and with whatever, like there's no money in streaming, or they don't really believe maybe in the online audience yet. So maybe just can you give some hope to the artists why there's still an industry there? It's not all cancelled.
Well, I mean, there's definitely there's definitely an industry. I mean, like the industry, kind of like we've discussed before, is the business of content, which is a lot of industry now. The business of media, which is actually what we're all in. There's the business of recorded music, which is technically growing year on year. I mean, anyone who's following me on Facebook has been promoting Bandcamp, for example, and how well they've been doing. I mean, on their Bandcamp days, their special Bandcamp Fridays, they've made like tens of millions of dollars. Well, tens of millions of dollars have been made to the artists. They haven't made zero on those days because that's the point. Like, they waive their fee. But anyway, like, you only have to Google the facts to know that there's an industry there. It's not like there's no industry. But I suppose it's about like what you're trying to achieve, because there's no like there's no like, oh, this is how an artist succeeds and everyone does that. That doesn't apply. It kind of depends, really. Like, if you want to be an artist, then fortunately we have many things in place that allow us to just do it. That allow us to promote and to produce, promote, release music and build brands. And fortunately, the internet has democratized a lot of that process, has made that available to anyone, anyone with, at least a smartphone. The rest of it, though, really is kind of like, what are you trying to specifically achieve? And then what is the series of things that you need to do that will most effectively get to that goal, right? So,
and what is the series? Can I give you an example? Maybe you can just think of a first, like, for example, I'm an artist now, and I've written my first couple of songs, and I've already produced maybe, let's say, one song. I found a producer, and now I have this song, and what can I do with that now? Like, what would you advise me? What would you say? How can I do the best release, or step by step, what's possible?
Okay, so I mean, again, who's the audience and why are you releasing music?
Oh,
you know what I mean? That's,
yeah.
Like, give me a hypothetical answer
right.
to that question.
Okay, let's say I just go for a random example. I'm a more acoustic songwriter, a little bit of style of Ed Sheeran. And maybe I know that probably, like, I'm a young guy, let's say mid of 20, and my audience is also around the 20s probably. So okay. I'm mainstream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, like, okay, let's assume that you just want the pleasure of knowing that someone has heard your music. The first thing you need to figure out is, like, that, obviously we started on who that someone is, but that's in itself, that is actually a lot of deep work. It's not just like, oh, they look like this, or they hang out here. It's like, how do they discover music? At what point do they discover someone new that they hadn't discovered before? A lot of this is very theoretical, of course, but, like, an artist might say, yeah, I just want people to hear my music. Well, cool. I mean, one way that you can do that isn't my favorite way, but one way you can do it is, do the playlist thing, right? Because if you're satisfied with knowing that your song was streamed by people who hadn't streamed your music before, if that's a goal, then that's one way to do it. It's a pretty simple, not cheap, but a pretty simple way to do it. Why I don't like that so much, like, relative to other things, because, like, if an artist is trying to build a career, they need to build a fan base. If you're building a fan base, you need to be able to communicate with them. It's like, cool, you got 5,000 streams on Spotify. Now what? Who were they? Tell them something. Send them an email. Oh, you can't, right? So that's kind of my problem with that. And because for me, that is like, cool, people heard your music. Awesome. It's like, great, cool. What does that, like, what is the output, the career output of that fact, right? Whereas if you made some efforts that resulted in, I don't know, a handful of email addresses, like 5 or whatever, you now have a relationship with those 5 people for the rest of time. You know, like you're not, you know, that's not someone else's relationship. Like on Spotify, for example, the relationship is between the fan and Spotify. It's not with the artist. So that's why it's really important that like we have to determine what we're trying to do here. Like for someone, you know, for someone, they could be like, I just want 1 million streams. I just want 1 million streams. I don't care about anything else. Cool. Then there are plenty of playlist pluggers who will take your money for that. It won't be cheap. But there's plenty of people that will do that for you because you've decided that that is important to you. In my opinion, if you want to build a career, you need to build a fan base and be able to communicate with them. That is the most, that is step 1, you know? So in that regard, like if that is the goal, then you need to be like, find your community and you need to kind of build value in that community in a way that interests them enough for them to want to go deeper. So you could attach some value to it in some way, but yeah, like you have to build an audience. But what's important, you know, and we see people building audiences on social media every single day. Like we're all subject to it because we're all consuming it. That's why it's valuable. So it's not like oblivious to anyone how that happens because it happens to us, right? We're all audiences as well.
Yeah.
You know, but what I advise artists in general is like, okay, cool, that looks good in the social media world, but how can we get them into our business? If that makes sense.
Yeah, the business model.
Anyway,
yeah. I think you mentioned a key point right now with hi Asma as well. With the importance of what really has changed in the industry is the direct connection you can have now to your fans. And you must have it. And you must have it, in my opinion. And just to give you maybe a really good resource, it's not only in the music industry. I think like due to social media, all products these days or all brands these days, they only survive unless you're like really one of the big ones. But all the brands or new brands, new companies these days, they only survive because of those direct connections they have to their clients or to their fans. It's really what you said, relationships. It's not really just, here's my product, buy it. That actually is because we are overwhelmed with products. We are overwhelmed with music as well. Indeed. And so what do you guys, just think of yourself when do you buy something, maybe via references, or maybe you follow a company or brand and you think, wow, cool, I trust them. Trust is a really important keyword. And if you want to have a really good resource, like a general resource, not especially about the music industry, is from Seth Godin about how I think it's called Marketing Today, and it's all about storytelling. So let's imagine now we have that story now, we have built up kind of a brand, or we're about to build it up. And can you also advise some tools? So what can I do now? So I'm posting on social media. I post like maybe a daily post, and I just communicate mostly every day with my fans. And how can I now start to build up the business model, or what's now the step to do? Is there any tools that I can use, something that helps me to stay connected, or just also generate some little income or whatever?
Okay. Well, to build a business, you need a product. And obviously you might think, and that's fine. Like you can decide, for example, you could decide that the music is the product, and that's fine. That's awesome. Like people do buy music, which is awesome. You could decide that that's the product. You could also decide that the product is more of that you're more of the product, and the way that I mean that is like your connection with the audience and ways that you add value to them is the product. So like, for example, it could be like a Patreon. Patreon's really, really good. Like, I'm just gonna like promote Patreon because like Patreon, for anyone who's not familiar with it, is a membership platform. Okay, so like you could, as an artist or as a creator, a lot of YouTubers use it. You can create a membership platform where your audience can, like, you know, give you $1 a month, $3, $5, $50, and these are like, you have different tiers, you know, and they can subscribe for $1 and they get these exclusives. You know, you can subscribe for $5 and you get these exclusives, and that might be the product. You know, you might do like private. See, Spelk is here, and he is a Patreon of Rooks. He's a Rooks patron, and he was Ian Haya. He was in a live stream gig that she did just for the patrons, and it was the best. He might also say that, but it was the best because the good thing about that was everyone, because that gig was exclusive to the Patreon audience who are already invested in Rooks. The retention was just like flat, completely. Like, everyone tuned in and everyone stayed the gig and everyone communicated with each other, and it was all good. You were there, right? You saw some of that. Yeah. And you know, in some ways, that's a product. You know, and of course, that's a product. I mean, that's no different to an actual gig in real life, in the physical domain. That's a product as well. It's part of the service that you render to an audience as an artist. So artists aren't. It's not like an artist is without product. You've got music, recorded music itself. You actually got the musical works themselves. You've got the fact that you're a performer. You might also, as an artist, you might have a different thing that's a bit unique to you. You know, you might also be trying to get production gigs or top lining gigs or something like that. So that's all added into the brand, and that can be one of various products. So yeah, when you got a business, you know, like, that means you should have, ideally you should have a product, but you get to, the good thing is you get to decide what the product is, you know, what you're monetizing and what is branding. So for some people, and I've considered this quite a few times, some artists do well by literally giving their album away for free in exchange for an email address, which I think is not the worst idea in the world. And then they get these emails and then they funnel that audience into products or like exclusive content or merchandise or like a CD, for example, you know? So the good thing is, like, and this is what all artists should be thinking about, and this is like a lot of the work that I do with artists, is deciding what the model is. Because then you know, okay, cool, this stuff is product and I'm gonna sell that exclusively, and the rest is marketing. The rest is branding. So just make sure that, like, you know, you might create, like, I use the word funnel quite a lot because it is appropriate. You might decide that, like, yeah, I'm going to give away my first 3 singles for an email, and then in the email you promote the album that you release later on. You know, so you're getting this social media traffic, you're getting this, you know, gross impressions, this brand awareness, but then you're funneling it into an actual business, because your business doesn't belong on the social media platform because it's not yours, it's theirs, right? So you need to figure that out. But like, the good thing is, it's up to you how you figure that out, like what that thing is that you might give away in exchange for an email, or you might put as a Patreon exclusive. You get to decide that. And it also kind of depends on lifestyle. Like, you might, you know, some artists will only commit to doing 1 gig a month, and I'm like, cool, well, that's quite special then, and maybe you don't want to give it away on Facebook or on whatever. Maybe you want to package it behind a product or a membership platform or something like that that is exclusive just to your audience. So yeah, cool. I'm not sure if that answered anything, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But never mind.
You said, like, one tool, for example, Patreon. I think Patreon is definitely a great way.
Fabulous.
Just for some artists, maybe, like, either you have, as you said, you could do like live streams there. I think Patreon works quite well if you already kind of have released a bit of music. I think what I've heard so far, but maybe it's also just check it out and see if you could deal with it. But one important thing that you said, which is completely independent and super important for every business, is an email list. And that's where you can always start, no matter if you haven't even produced or recorded a song. If you go on a gig, just hand out, say to your fans, listen guys, if you want to follow me, either join my email list. And it's not just about following social medias. I can tell you why. Those guys who come to you and really do the effort to sign up with their hands on your email list, they really like you.
Yeah.
It's not, I can just follow a page and I don't care anymore. But if I go to an artist and like, I fucking want to be on your email list, just sometimes it's just, I don't even care about the emails, but I have a conversation with the artist. So I know like they're definitely interested in you. And you can start doing that without having even released music. You can play on every gig, doing cover gigs, saying, listen guys, soon I'm going to release something. And if you really believe in me, fucking sign up on my email list. And definitely email is a good tool for that is, for example, MailChimp.
Yeah.
You can easily create emails. You don't even need to have a homepage, just create emails. So check out MailChimp, definitely a good resource. I had another really good question, like we had a questionnaire for this webinar. And one question was also, let's switch a bit into maybe mindset issues. There was an artist saying, I struggle sometimes with the pressure. So maybe it's you kind of know what it needs or what it takes to make a career. And then maybe I know many artists, they just don't have a plan. I guess that's a good a really big struggle for artists. So maybe you can say like, pressure, help me, so many things to do. How can I do a plan? What's your advice on that then?
Okay. I mean, pressure is something I deal with quite a lot, to be honest. The way I personally, I mean, this is a really personal thing, but like I'll tell you my way of dealing with pressure because it is a thing. Because I'm accountable to other people. The thing with pressure is, and pressure comes from somewhere, and like you might be experiencing pressure and I might be experiencing pressure, but the source of the pressure can be very, very different things. It could be pressure to do with family stuff, like, oh, what will my family think of me if I do X, Y, Z, or if I don't achieve X, Y, Z? I mean, first of all, like, this is why I talk about focusing more on input than output, because obviously input influences output, but input is the one of the two that you control. Like when I go to bed at night, generally speaking, I know I did, like, that was the best day I could have done, And if it wasn't the best day I could have done, cool, then I recognize that and maybe tomorrow I'll do a better day. But the reason that I do that is because like, then I'm trying to base my emotions only on things that I can control. So the pressure thing, yeah, it's real, but I'm just like, you're doing good input, you're doing good work. Many of the output variables are out of our control, or they don't necessarily manifest immediately. But if you do have an external source of pressure, like maybe a person or, what you might think someone else might think, which is a thing, like we all deal with that, then there's some internal stuff in there that you might need to do in order for you to let go of that stuff, because I know that can be a massive hindrance on someone, especially on their career. I mean, like, because when you're building a career, like, I like using the word career, even though it's quite overly used, but the word career is a really, really long perpetuity kind of word. Like, and it's something that I remind myself and remind my clients every so often. It's like, look, we're building a career. The stuff that we're doing is all for us to build a thing long term. At least my artists do. I don't, that's why I'm not, for example, I'm not a Spotify hacker, because for me, that's like short term. That's just short term transient wins that don't really play out. But yeah, I mean, the pressure thing is hard. Like, I get it, and I don't really have a solution, but I can just tell you that I just only try and watch my input, you know, but doesn't mean I don't succumb to pressure sometimes. Doesn't mean, I mean, I'll tell you one thing actually, like when you're making a decision, like go to the next level of awareness and check in on the emotional triggers that are influencing your decision making. If you're making a decision based on fear and scarcity in the context of career, you're probably going to make a bad decision. But if you are making a decision based on more feelings of abundance and feelings of opportunity and optimism, you're probably making a good decision. Like, generally speaking, you don't actually need an external signal as to whether or not you're making a good decision, in my opinion. You just need to check in on the emotional receptors that you're using to make that decision. If it's fear and scarcity, it's a no. If it's abundance, opportunity, optimism, you know, it's probably a good decision. That's all I got on that one, though.
Yeah. Now, very good advice, though. Like, I think in the music industry, pressure is kind of a normal thing, I would say. And for me, like being on stage all the time, because you have to perform always 100%, no matter how you feel. Like, if you're ill, if you're unhappy, people don't care. In the moment you jump on stage, it's like the show must go on. And I felt like how I could deal with pressure in the beginning. I remember my first gig. I mean, I was really young, but I felt like I get a heart attack. I felt so under pressure. And these days, I really think pressure for me, it's part of the game. I need it to really be on point. And of course, you have to figure out the balance to not put yourself too much under pressure, and always think perception is everything. We measure always high. Like we think of, especially in the music industry, you think, oh my God, I haven't received a Grammy yet, and I'm not really successful. But success is a definition of it's an individual definition. And don't put yourself so much under pressure. Go step by step. That's the best thing. Don't think think big, but don't overthink it. I would say, as he said, every day do your best. Andy said something.
Yeah, he said something about the stream, but can you build? He said something about the stream, but that's probably just an internet thing. Ian says, can you build a music career without performing live gigs?
Very good question.
That is a good question.
I'm gonna hand it over to you now.
Okay. I mean, yes, absolutely. You could build a career just on recording. Again, this comes back down to like you get to decide what business you want to build. Yeah. You know, you don't have to do live gigs if you don't want to. You certainly don't have to. I mean, everyone has no choice but now to build a business without doing live gigs. So that's a proof of concept in reality. Yeah, I mean, you can just channel all of your calories into building a business based on recorded music, or I don't know, you know, some sort of content business that you're building around you as an artist. So yeah, I mean, like the thing is, like you have to assume that like if you can make $1 on something, you can make infinite dollars. You just have to compound the results over time, which just takes time. Just it, calories over time, you know, that's it. But again, figure out your business model. So, you know, in Ian's example, performing live isn't going to be part of the business model that he builds. Great. You know, if anything, that's not even I don't even see that as a net disadvantage either, because doing gigs, you'll know, is a lot of input. It's a lot of work. There's so much more to doing gigs than the gigs themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they're not like, it's not an easy business in itself. But yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't really think of anything that you can't build a business on. I mean, like there's people getting paid millions of dollars to play video games on the internet right now. Like, you know what I mean? If it's valuable to someone else, I promise you can build a business on it. Yeah. Like the good thing is that someone else, believe it or not, doesn't have to be millions of someone else's. Yeah. It can even be as low as 50, you know, like 50 because the amount of shits that they give about you and your artists and your art, sorry, like the way that I see it is like vertical and horizontal, right? You can have width, but if you have a million low quality impressions from people who don't buy anything or don't contribute to your business in some way, then it's not, doesn't really have net output.
Yeah.
But if you have 50 very vertical fans who buy everything, buy all the t-shirts, buy all the CDs, you'll be surprised how quickly you can make money.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and the good thing is as well, like, there are so many income streams available now. Like, I mean, with my artists, like, we're always unlocking a new income stream. Some things I didn't even know exist. I'm like, shit, just discovered this one because someone told me about it. Let's figure that out and add it into the model because it might work. So yeah, I mean, but one thing that I think artists too quickly normalize and believe too easily, which is very understandable because it's based on insecurities and what other people are doing, is that you do not have to let your music be commoditized. Like, music has value. Music is not a commodity. Music is not the same as coffee or water or copper. Okay, like, every piece of music has unique value, and the value of that piece of music is subjective to the person who loves it. Just because everyone else is giving away their value for free doesn't mean you have to do that. Like, you know, there's a lot to be said about you know, about productizing what is actually a very valuable thing. Like, if Master of Puppets, Metallica album, one of my favorite albums of all time, that wasn't on streaming platforms, I'd buy it over and over and over again because I need that album. That album isn't a heavy metal album, it's Metallica Master of Puppets. You know, like, so, and it might feel weird at first because everyone's just giving their stuff away to all of the platforms, and that's fine, and maybe that's part of their macro strategy. But music, just because it feels like music is free and is given away by everyone, it doesn't have to be true for you on an individual basis. Like, I'm all for holding some things back behind a paywall of some sort because shit's valuable, you know, and the people who value it will buy it.
And if you give me a second for our next question, because I have all the questions up there. We had a really interesting question as well. Yeah. Okay. So there was from an artist who has already recorded songs. I think he has already released some songs as well. At least at some platforms. I heard some of his music. And he said he wants to know, or his biggest obstacles in the music industry right now is about promotion and management. Just to be said, he has released like a music video, and he has shot a music video and wants to release it very soon. And he had some great performances in some countries. But so I think he's about to release something. Yeah, that's it. And now his next step is with promotion. And one very interesting thing, maybe before I hand over, is he's asking about management. I guess there's still many artists out there. They've recorded their music, and they immediately think of a manager. And now you can maybe, as you are a manager, can maybe tell, are they already on the point to have a manager? Is it a good step? It's like building up a team. And what to do next with promotion then?
Okay, so the thing with management is like a really, we use a lot of words, and those words are like label and management and PR and promotion. When you actually look at all of these things, they are extremely abstract. You know, they're not like, you know, what I do and what I call management might be very different to what another manager does because their artists have different needs or what have you. Like, things are more different than we might think they are in the abstract. But like, I mean, with this one, like, I mean, if there's a business there that needs managing and it's a matter of like they don't have the calories to do it, and it's just unmanageable or it's not in their skill set, then yeah, they might need a manager. Sometimes though, a manager might, sometimes someone might come in, and build that thing that needs management for them, because, it's not like, at the end of the day, it's not, like, I generally believe that artists can build businesses sooner than they think. Like a lot of people say, oh, just build an audience, build an audience, build an audience, build an audience. I'm like, yeah, no, that's great. You got to do that. But you'll be surprised how soon you can build a business underneath that audience. Even if you get one at first, it proves the concept, So some artists, they don't have a remote, like some artists that I've started working with before, they don't even, there's no model, because they what they do is like, oh, we'll try this Spotify promotion thing, we'll try this YouTube promotion thing, the SoundCloud promotion thing, all with the idea that someone's going to come along and wand the legitimacy and sign you and everything's going to be okay. And that does happen for some people, and that happens for the ones that we read about, right? But we're biased to the ones that we read about because they're already famous, but at the same time, there are a load of artists out there who are quitting today just because they've been chasing things that don't have business output, in my opinion. Okay, so I mean, I reckon I could talk to like 20 artists and say a handful of things, and all of a sudden they've got a model and everything makes sense, right? But no one was there to say that to them. And then further down the line, a big manager signs them or something like that, because managers and labels, they're all businesses as well. They want to invest in a business that's working, I mean, you don't need a manager if you think you do, because the artist that you read about on Wikipedia had one, so you must need one. That's not why you need a manager. You need a manager because you haven't figured out the business, or you need someone to help you work the business and manage the business going forward. But most artists need that initial help, in my opinion, which is, a lot of the work that I do. Like, I mean, most of the artists that I work with now, at the beginning, and this doesn't happen overnight, and you don't figure it out in the abstract, but at the beginning, there wasn't a model. Again, it was like, oh, I'll try some of this and that will do something. I don't know what that thing is, but that will work because other people are doing it. But yeah, like when I come in and go, oh no, actually, we take some of that and we build it into this, and then we productize that, and then that's how we communicate with people, and then you've got business. And some people just need that. So if you think that you, I mean, I wouldn't go and try and find a manager necessarily. I would just go and try and this is general advice, probably the most important piece of advice ever when you're building a career, just go out and build relationships with people, and then you might find someone, or they might find you, and then it works out. I mean, if I look at every business relationship that I have now, I didn't first approach them, or they didn't first approach me with the intention of doing the things that we do today. It was just dialogue. Like, you don't need a specific outcome in order to motivate you to go and talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? So, I mean, the thing is though, like with the business, like I know like the romantic narrative of the industry is that like, oh, you make your art and someone else will take care of the business. I think that's really dangerous. I think that's a really, really dangerous mindset. And frankly, that's how people get screwed.
Yes.
And that is the narrative that the industry use as leverage against artists to take everything.
Yeah.
I think that's bullshit. Like, I think at the end of the day, if it's your business, unless you literally go into 50-50 partnership with someone, anything more than that, if it's your business, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, this sucks. Like, you might not be the most business-minded person, but at the same time, if you can understand such abstract concepts that we use every day to create music, you can understand business concepts as well. And business concepts are they're not always that abstract,
Yeah.
I mean, if you bought Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman, which is like the original Bible of the music business. I think literally in the first paragraph, it says, like, I know you're an artist, but you are building a business and you have to constantly remember that, you know, because it amazes me even today when I say to artists like, oh yeah, the business, and we're building the business. And they're like, oh, I don't want to build a business. I just want something to pay for itself. I'm like, that's a business. That is literally what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, finding a manager, I don't think you just necessarily find them. I think you just you build relationships with people. I mean, I have all week, every week, I have calls with people I've never spoken to before. And I have no interest and no like intention on them working with me or anything like that. Like, I'm just building relationships over time. And then one or two of those will become very fruitful relationships at some point in the future. But I couldn't tell you who and what that will be.
Okay. Yeah, very, very good and important point. That one, like, I'm an artist myself, but I also have a business degree. So luckily I always say my brain has two sides, the artist and the business side. But I get it as an artist. Like, you think you need a manager, you need someone, like, you only do the arts. Yeah, that's a dream. But like, it's just a dream, and maybe also a bubble. For some it works, but that's really random. And yeah, I think it's really important. You don't have to be an ace in business. And of course you can get help in that. I mean, you can get help in everything that you're not good at. Don't have to be a genius, or you don't have to be Superwoman or Superman and be able to do everything. That's like impossible, also time-wise. But you have to have an idea. And with business, I can also tell you, one thing you need to at least know a little bit, like, educate yourself a little bit. And there's so many good resources in that. Read a book, I don't know, go to YouTube or ask, or maybe whatever, find a guy like Chris and just have a 1 hour chat, like, what can I do? Education is always the key. If you have any like anything missing in your life, or you need like knowledge that's missing, you can educate yourself. And if you still don't get it, you can still get help, but at least you need to have a little bit of an idea. And that's super essential, especially we are here now to talk to independent artists and those guys who want to stay independent. Like, the model has changed, definitely. Like, it's not really, classical model doesn't really exist anymore. There's not really any, we always say, like, the industry it's not really a music industry anymore. It's every business is an individual business, and it can be, your product can be music related to gaming. It can be music related to fashion, whatever. So it's not really like the classical thing. And we also had another really good. I like to always dive into the mindset of artists, because I think that's especially in the beginning, that's the first thing you need to work on is your mindset. And we had a really interesting question as well about for today's webinar. That's really interesting. So, what are the biggest obstacles for you at the moment in your career, was the question. And it was the answer, or like the question is, fear of success, how it could change my life, and financial stability. So it's like two questions, kind of. Fear of success, really interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Okay, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm going to lean in on the define success for yourself piece, because that's actually really, really important. So fear of success, let's define success. So, I mean, again, that's definitely something you have to first define that for yourself, because if you don't define it for yourself, you will rely on other people's seemingly definitions of it, and then there's always going to be someone who's better than you, and then that's an easy way to feel shit on a long-term basis. So define it for yourself, and you don't just, again, that's not something you just do once. It's a process in itself. Fear of success, I mean, when I hear that, it's, again, because you're defining it for yourself, it doesn't have to define you in any way. You know, like it doesn't have to change you, or it doesn't have to influence who you are as a person. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that you get to be the person. You get to be the version, you know, you don't have to change necessarily as a person on a moral level or any way in order to be successful. If you're worried that things will influence you, then you just have to be aware of that and just be mindful and try and be present along the way. Like I've dealt with that. I mean, there are things that I go through now internally that are definitely success influenced problems in my life, where like a personal thing for me is like I have difficulty, especially now in quarantine, I have difficulty separating out the two and knowing when, knowing who the human being is, who the business person is. You know, and I think back to when I was in Manchester, for example, when I'd go to the pub, like in the pub with my friends, I'm Chris, you know, and as time goes on and, you know, as I've progressed in my career, I hold even more weight to the value of that, because in those pub settings, when I'm just sitting there having a drink with my mates, I'm not Chris, the guy who made Unlock Your Sound and who works with these artists and does all of these things and does music career webinars. I'm just a guide to them, and it's awesome, you know. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and because again, that's me deciding what I want in life, you know. I don't necessarily either want to be the biggest business in the world. Like I'm actually really happy with my business as it is, and I just want to continue to work on it. You know, I'm not trying to become Facebook or something. You know, but I also, yeah, I mean, again, that's why you need to be mindful at the beginning. It's like, okay, what is the life that I want? What is the business that I want? And then focus entirely on that, and don't let any other external information steer you away from what you want, because you get to have what you want. If you work hard enough, if you burn enough calories in the direction of what you want, you get to have it. But, you know, you don't have to let external sources. It's not easy, like something that I work hard on every day. Like, you know, I think about what other people think sometimes, and sometimes it's counterproductive, but I just have to be mindful of it. It's a discipline. It's a process. There's no, like, you can't YouTube how to be happy or how to be successful. You have to figure it out. Like, this is one thing that I talk about a lot more recently, is like, we talk so much in the abstract about all of this theoretical stuff, but it actually happens in the day-to-day, you know, like all of this stuff, the business, the mindset, the awareness, like you figure it out in the process, you know, and you just have to continue working it. But the awareness piece, like check in with yourself and think about how you're making decisions. But yeah, I mean, again, you have to decide it all for yourself. I think I'm rambling at this point, but we have another question here, actually.
Yeah.
What is the best way to promoting your work to the widest audience and draw many vertical followers? I have music on SoundCloud and all streaming services, and it doesn't feel enough. I also use Submit Hub, Sound Better, Facebook, Instagram. Promotion to the wider world is hard. Okay. Okay, so there's like obviously many different strategies. Again, Ian, again, like who are you trying to promote to? Like you need to think about who that audience is, and then like sometimes you need to become them, you know, to like get into their head and like where am I, like where am I discovering stuff? Think really, really hard about it, because they're your customers. You got to think about them. You got to have empathy for your customers in any business at the end of the day. Again, you said wider audience, but then you said vertical. Okay, so they're not necessarily contradictory things, but they are related. Like, you know, again, if you want to promote yourself to a wider audience, then playlist until you run out of money, and then you'll have it. But then again, doesn't necessarily result in anything either. Could do, but doesn't always. I also use Submit Hub, Soundbetter, Facebook, and Instagram. Yeah, I mean, these are just content distribution platforms. I mean, one thing you can do is run ads. Ads are great. You know, the good thing about an ad is you don't even have to be necessarily selling something. The good thing about an ad is like you can take content and send it, you know, have Facebook run it against a particular audience. And then you can measure the success of that output and then refine it. Ads are a really, really good way to do that. And they also get you out of the world of algorithms and organic traffic and all of that, you know, very transient, very random business. Running ads is a really, really good way to do it. Submit Hub and all that blog stuff, that can be nice. I mean, the value of that, in my opinion, is mostly getting people to write about your music, which is a good thing to add to the press pack and what have you. Adds a bit of social proof or validity and all of that stuff. Getting people to write about your music is a good thing, especially because the people who are writing about your music have properly listened to your music and they are in themselves a fan of music on a really, really deep level, you know. I mean, Rooks had a blogger that we know quite well. Like, he literally joined her Patreon recently because he's a music blogger because he loves music more than everyone else does. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just become a music blogger without loving music, you know. So I think the blog thing is a good thing. One thing that is that has been working for me and my artists recently is influencers or people with followings on social media platforms. You know, getting people to use the music on there and what have you. But yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, the platforms aren't going to do that for you. That's not their job. Their platform, their job is to have a music platform that makes it easy for people to consume music for as little money as possible. They've done their job. But yeah, promotion, you know, again, there's paid promotion. So learn Facebook ads and just learn what advertising is and how it works. You know, I'm saying that to everyone. But the organic thing works as well. Like, it depends. Like, if you have more calories than money, you're going to have to do organic stuff.
Yeah.
If you have more money than calories, then do paid. You know.
Can I also say something?
Yeah.
Because I know a little bit of Ian and his music, and maybe one thing, like, I don't know you as well as Chris does, and that's the good thing. I know you the way the other audience knows you, and maybe we can just say Spelk is a producer and also does cooperation with many artists. For example, I did a song with him, a cover song. Rooks did some songs with him. So really great productions. And I guess when I think of your brand, maybe you can also dive a little bit more into your own branding. I think there's a bit. When I think of Spelk, I thought in the beginning you do more like a recording engineer, or you are more like a recording engineer doing cover songs, until I figured out that you actually have own music. So I guess branding is a very important point, and you could be very, like, a bit more personal in your brand, maybe. I think that could definitely help you, because like working together with you was awesome. You have a really great personality, which is super important in the music industry, and that's when people love to work with you. And also only the fact that you're doing so many collaborations is a cool thing. So maybe you can build a brand around that, being a collaborative or cooperative kind of producer, because we artists, I'm not good in producing, and I love to do collaborations with people who can do it. So even if that's your brand, like, you don't have to be upfront in the microphone yourself, and you can even, like, with covers, or even, I don't know, with productions, you can build up your own brand. But I think it needs to be, from what I know of you, could be just more specific to know what your brand actually is, like maybe define it a bit more. I guess that could definitely help to, it's not all about the music, you know, the music is great. The thing behind is maybe as important to me as the music. So always when I look for new artists, even on Spotify, or if I discover an artist, I immediately jump on Facebook, on Instagram, and I check them out, and I want to find anything where I can relate to, and something that's like personal, and where I'm like, oh, those guys are so cool. I want to know their story. Like, oh my God, they got found on the whatever they know each other since school time. What a cool story, or they're brothers or whatever. I don't know, something like that. Really, that's affecting me. So I guess that might help me.
Build relationships as well. I mean,
yeah,
building, like when you're having a relationship, when you're building a relationship with someone, and this is one-to-one stuff. It should be, like, then they're aware of you, and like, I mean, I've secured things for my artists because like I have a relationship with the blogger or the playlister or what have you, so that when I send them an email about my roster, they open it because they know who I am.
Yeah.
Right. You know, like it's,
personality.
you know, how to promote your music. Maybe like have 10 calls with people or other artists or other people that are like, you know, connect with. Yeah, like
audience,
yeah, or even they don't, and you're just connecting with other artists because it's hard being an artist. So let's talk about it.
Yes.
You know, like, you know, and then you might do a collaboration with that person in 8.5 years, and then that becomes a thing because their thing grew. You know, like relationships are, there's nothing more important than that, actually. Like we could just summarize this whole thing down to relationships because it's a lot easier to do well when you have people on your side because you're on their side as well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Oh, you're welcome. You're fabulous.
Maybe we do one more question. Unless you guys have questions, just type it in, or if you like want to add something on, like on the discussion, feel free to write something. I just dive into the last question we have here.
Your head is almost bang in the middle of this, you know. There it is.
Awesome. All right, so to still have fun and to still have fun while doing it. I think that's a very good ending to sum it up. To still have, like, when you get successful, that you still have fun while doing or while creating music. And now I want to come to a very important mindset point. Artists always say, and Chris always pointed it out in the beginning, think of why you're doing it. And I guess your favorite answer is you hear, because I love it. Love is a very good motivator, to be honest. I think I've heard that in life you always have two motivators. One is fear, one is love, which is good. But now like you have to think even deeper than that. It's not just because I love music. So Chris, maybe I love that when your first question always is when you meet an artist, why are you doing it? So maybe I can just hand over and you tell us why this question is so important. Okay.
Another question I ask artists is like, what does your ideal day look like? What does your ideal week look like? What do you do? What do you want to do? Like, let's pretend money and business aren't a thing and you just get to do what the hell you want. What would you do? Oh, I'll do this. Cool. Let's build a business on that, you know, and then, you know, you'll be most happy generally. So yeah, I mean, again, why are you doing it? All of that stuff. On a practical level as well, if you want to build a career doing something you love, you're making it your job. And when it's your job, you have to fucking turn up for work every day. Not every day necessarily, but like when you decided it's your job, it's your job. Like when you have a job and you work for someone else, you don't get to not turn up to work, you know? And like on a practical level, like there are going to be some days, hopefully fewer than not, but some days are going to suck and you're going to question why, and you're just going to have a bad day. Like you will do it. Like it will happen. So try and like, if it's every single day and you decide after like 2 months of doing this and you hate it every day that you don't want to do it, great, cool. You don't, you know, like it's not like we figure out everything we want to do by the time we're 18, you know, but there will be some days that will just suck and you will question, like it happens to me sometimes, you know. But then I'm like, nope, this is my job and I've chosen this to be my job. so I have to turn up to work. I have days off sometimes and whatever, or some days I just have to like be like, nope. Or like I actually book days off in the week to have off. But at some point, like, you know, if it's just a once, this is kind of another awareness thing. Like if you have a particular feeling, but you only have it like once every 8 days or 9 days or 10 days, and it's an infrequent fleeting thing, then whatever. Just choose, like, just decide that there are things like that. I just decide, I'm like, okay, that's one of my problems. You know, if I didn't have that problem, I'd have another one anyway. This is my current problem, but I'm happy to have this problem in the global context of what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not going to have, you know, I just think it's important to say, like, when you decided that this is your job, you're going to have bad days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. And also,
your Chris.
Something really important to add on that is, I can only tell you from my side, like, I'm a singer now since 10 years. And also, I create my own songs since 4 years now. And for me, like when I grew up, it was in the beginning of my, or like say, end of teenage time, beginning of 20s. And it was on the weekends, I had to go on jobs, singing jobs, weddings, company events, whatever. Whilst my friends went on a disco or in a club, and they were like, "Oh, Sherry, don't you want to like live your youth and come up with us to the club?" And I'm like, "No, that's my life. Like, I love what I do, and I can't imagine doing anything better than that." And I never missed it. And still, when my business model or my working flow is, I'm more like I do every day a little bit. Because when I sit on something for 3 or 4 hours, I have to stop it. It's just I have to do something else. So I rather do every day a little bit. But in the moment when I'm doing it, I never feel like this is work. And I had a job where you knew this is work. So I guess many artists say, "Yeah, but I don't want to be under pressure. I don't want to like. I just want to do it because I love it." That's cool if you want to do it, yes, then probably the best for you is to leave it as a hobby. But those guys who take it really serious, I mean, all the big rock stars out there, they still love what they do, but they're doing it seriously. It's a profession. It's like, it's a call, an inner call.
Also, like, I think, I mean, this might just be my personal perspective on things, and it's something I think about. But like, I know some people who do music part-time, but in my opinion, a very professional way. Yeah, and they are happy as fuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, good for them. But sometimes I feel like there's a narrative in the industry. It's like, no, you have to be full-time, and you have to. No, you have to just do what you want to do and build a business on that. Like, if you want to be, you know, if you want to be a part-time musician and a part-time something else because you also like that, you're allowed to like more than one thing.
Yeah.
That's like totally okay. As long as you're happy and you're doing a relatively good job as far as your clients or your audience are concerned, who gives a shit? Yes. My language just got really bad.
No, true. I mean, you can be everything these days. Just that's why are you doing it? And you say love.
Yeah. That's
already a very good start. And to maybe sum that up, like we are here to talk about how to kickstart your career. So let's let's do a quick agenda, a step-by-step guide, which is always individual. We can't like tell it or say it in general. Let's imagine you have already written songs. Now, next steps is, do you have social medias? Go on fucking social medias. That is a great platform for every artist out there. It's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's also other ways. I don't know. Like, yes. When gigs are allowed again, gigs is always great. Build up a mailing list, very important. Do that. If you have written songs, go and find a producer, find someone who can help you with that. Produce your first song. Then go and dive into how to release music. But before that, build up a brand. Branding is super important. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want the people to think of you? That's super important. Just build up a brand and be consistent with what you do. Like, don't just release a song and then see what happens. I think also write down a plan, 1 year for a 1 year plan, a 2 years plan, 3 years plan. And most important, if you're just stuck somewhere, go and educate yourself, get some resources. A really good resource you just gave me was the book on, how is it called?
So it's Ari Herstand's, yeah, I'm going to recommend 2 books. One I've already mentioned. Actually, I might recommend 1 too. But the first book I think people should get as a reference, as your backbone of literature, is Donald Passman's Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business. The second book, which will probably get you started faster and is a bit more modern and a bit more relevant, is Ari Herstand's How to Make It in the New Music Business book. Buy both of those books, basically. Because why not? Why wouldn't you invest 20 quid on a career? Yes. You know, so yeah, those books are really, really good. The first book, like that Donald Passman book, is like hardcore how the music industry works, which is great. It's not easy to digest, but like once you've grasped these concepts, then you, first of all, you know how the law is actually built for you and how copyright works, which is really important because that allows you that, first of all, that explains how your interests are already protected by the law because they are, and how you can protect your interests on an ongoing basis so that you don't just give away the farm to the first deal that someone offers you. Because again, I want to say this like one more time, when you make a piece of music, that piece of music has a ton of value. Don't, just because everyone's giving it away, it does have a ton of value. You need to figure out how that exists in your business model, but it does have a ton of value. Yeah, get those 2 books. There's like some blogs and stuff that are okay. Ari Herstand's blog is good. Ari's Take. I think it's aristake.com, ARISTAKE.com.
Savvy Musicians is also really good.
Savvy Musicians, she's good. Leah McHenry's good. Yeah, like, I mean, you know, educate yourself. Like, the good thing is, like, you know, you can get a book on Amazon, or you can get the audio book, or you can get a Kindle book, you know, and you can read it, and you can buy courses and stuff, you know, just learn your, you know, just learn your way out of these problems. There's nothing that you can't, I mean, also there's some good podcasts, like I think Leah has one that's quite good. I think Ari has one now as well, because everyone has one nowadays. CD Baby's DIY Musician podcast is good. Yeah, I mean, just absorb. I mean, just the only thing I would be careful of is just being really, really critical with the information that you receive, because there is a lot of rubbish out there. But there's also like some things aren't necessarily rubbish, but they worked for that person, and it isn't necessarily relevant to you. You know, like that's something you have to be mindful of, like, because it's a lot easier to read about success than it is to read about failure, because the failures weren't successful. You know, like someone might say to me like, oh, Chris, this worked for that person. I'm like, yeah, but what about the 1,000 people that it didn't work for that we don't know about, because it didn't work for them. You know what I mean? Like, so when you only, so you mentioned someone to me recently, and you were talking to me about how they got into a bad deal and it didn't work out for them. And I was like, I want to talk to that person. I actually want to talk to as many quote unquote failures, or like
I
people
know many of those artists who have bad deals.
Yeah, I want to know about the bad deals as much as I want to know about the good deals, you know, like so because that actually gives you a proper context as to what's happening. It's easy to romanticize the people we read about on Wikipedia and think that their story is going to be replicable, but it's not. Yes,
yeah. So talking about deals and the classical model would be definitely worth another webinar, I would say.
Yeah.
But talking about bad deals, but we want this webinar to really be about kickstarting, like get your mindset right, get the first business model right, get your branding right, and promote it with a good marketing campaign. Maybe we can also dive a bit deeper into that, but find some resources definitely that can help. Like the most important things have been said so far. It's all about building relationships to your fans. There is not really one way of the best promotion or whatever. And you can buy, of course, promotion as much as you want to, but when you have loyal fans, you have loyal fans. And that's the good thing about the new music industry. Oh, thank you, As.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hello to Paris. I hope you guys had fun. We might do actually next weekend. I was talking to Andy, so it would be also interesting to do a webinar if you guys are interested to do a webinar about just purely songwriting and production. Really good advice on that, because it's not just like a song is easily written or produced. There's so many things that you still have to think about. And so that will be definitely worth it. I would say, Andy, if you're ready, we just do that next week and with you. Would be great. Yeah, we are watching together. Actually, cool.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. It was good to see you. Thank you, Chris. Go and check out Unlock Your Sound. And we will see each other very soon. Stay happy. Stay happy.
Ciao.
Bye.
Shall I just end the stream now?
Mm-hmm.